Today we are looking at Virtual Class 10, which focuses on reported speech. A little bit tricky because we need to know all of the tenses, but let's have a quick look at the agenda. 17.1, you'll be doing a reading called Finland, a Double Champion. Activities 2, 3, and 4 on Shaping My Language, page 102. Then we'll look at the language key for direct speech and reported speech. And then we will do the worksheet, which I've created for you. And finally, Mayon talking about the past. So let's check our end in mind. To be able to report what other people said using reported statements with backshift. And here, we're going to look at what direct speech is. Does anybody know? Direct speech is a sentence where the exact words that are spoken are written in speech marks, quotation marks, or inverted commas, as opposed to reported speech, which is when you tell somebody what somebody else has said. Reported speech is speech which tells you what someone said, but does not use the person's actual words. So let's check a couple of examples. Direct speech. I need to find a hospital, the lady shouted. That is an example of direct speech. The easiest way that you can tell whether it's direct speech or not is by looking for quotation marks. Remember, you need to have typed something into the computer for your participation to be counted. Good. Dara, Joanna, Jan, lovely. We will move on to reported speech. Here is an example of a reported sentence, and we'll use the same subject, okay? The lady shouted that she needed to find a hospital. What has happened to the verb in the part of speech that the lady has shouted? Can you see the difference in the verb? So in the direct speech, she has been talking in present tense. But when we report the speech, we go back a tense, which is called tense backshift. So we've gone from simple present, or present simple, to past simple. And the that I have put in brackets because it is optional. This one here. That is an optional word. It is a non-defining word, that. We're going to move on to backshift. Right, so we have to move back a tense every time we change a sentence from direct to reported. So we're going to have a look at what tenses we use. The first one is the same as the example that we checked just now. Present simple, we had need, which changed to needed. So what do you think the reported speech version of present simple would be? What tense are we going to put in there? Type it in the chat, please. There we go, Rocky. There we have it. Present simple changes to past simple. Okay. What about past simple? What would that go back to? It is the same as past perfect simple and present perfect simple. If the direct speech is any of those tenses, then we report it in past perfect simple. Present continuous. What does present continuous go back to? Alexa, past continuous. Good. And Jan, past continuous. Excellent. Well done. What about past continuous or past present perfect continuous? Past perfect continuous, Alexa. Yeah. Future simple, where we use will. What does the will change to? Jan. There you go. Very good, Dan. Would. Okay, there's your extra points there, Jan. Can and may, what do they change to? If will changes to would, can and may should be easy as well. Thank you, Jonas, with an L. Could, and what is the other one? May changes to might. Excellent. And the last one, should, would, could, and ought to. When we're using those words, nothing changes, so you don't have to change the tense with your modal verbs should, would, could, and ought to. That is the theory behind the tenses. Let's have a look at some examples. And we have a guy called Mike today. Here's the example we're using. Reported speech. I want something to eat, said Mike. How do we write that in reported speech? What kind of tense is that, direct speech? I want something. Remember, the subject I, if you're reporting it, it's not going to be I, is it? Because you didn't say it. Mike said it. Mike is speaking. So start with, Mike said, is Mike a boy or a girl? So what are we going to use? He. Yeah, very good. Jonas? Mike said he wanted something to eat. Now, next one is a little bit more tricky. It's a question. So again, we will start with Mike, then the verb, Mike asked. So we can start with that. Mike asked me, and then what did he ask you? How? Okay, Mike asked me how I was. Okay, you are not asking a question in your reported speech. You are talking about a question. So we don't use question marks. Next one. The dog ate my homework, said Mike. We have our verb in past, which means we need to change it. Past perfect, simple. Remember our had? Remember ate is simple past. So we need to change the simple past into, okay, Rocky. Also, that verb is in past participle, which is perfect. You just need the auxiliary, which goes before. There we are. Excellent. So Mike said the dog had eaten his homework. I'm coming home tonight, Mike told his mum. So here, Mike's not talking to you, he's talking to his mum. So we can start the reported speech sentence with what we have at the end. Mike told his mum, I am coming is present continuous, so we're going to change it into past continuous. Mike told his mum he was coming home that night, we would use, because you could be reporting it a different day. Okay? Next one. My dad was working when I called, said Mike. This one is past continuous, so it moves back to past perfect continuous, which is a little bit tricky, but we checked past perfect continuous last week. So Mike said, are you going to put my dad, or what are you going to change my dad to? You're not going to say my dad. It's not your dad. His dad, because we're reporting what he has said. So Mike said, his dad. Then we need our auxiliary had, be in past participle been, and then working when I called would change to working when he called. There we go. Mike said he had been working when he called, or his dad. I'll do it for you, Mum, shouted Mike. So this is future. Remember, if you look at the contraction at the start, I'll is I will. So do you remember what will changes to in the back shift? Remember that will changes to would. Mike shouted to To who? Who's he shouting to? His mum. Thank you, Diego. Okay, and what did he shout to his mum? Remember that will changes to would, which we can also contract to a D. Mike shouted to his mum that he would do it, or he'd do it. Okay? She ought to do it again. Do you remember that ought to doesn't change? So Mike said she ought to do it again. That one is nice and easy. And here we have an answer to a question. Mike answered, he don't in past tense. He didn't know where Texcoco is in past tense. You could say was. How did we get on with that? A little bit tricky. Once you've learned the table and know how to use your tenses, you should have no problems. And before we leave, we will check with a bit of dialogue from a book called Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. There's some chicken, said Weasel, in exchange for a story. What's his name? Said Bravd, who tended to lag behind in conversations. Two Flower. Two Flower, said Bravd. What a funny name. You, said Rinceweed, dismounting, do not know the half of it. Chicken, you say? That is a little bit of dialogue from The Color of Magic, which was written in 1983 by the wonderful Terry Pratchett. Look at the first part. How are we going to change this direct speech into reported speech? There's some chicken. That part is easy. There's some chicken. How does it change? Rocky, perfect. Weasel said there was some chicken in exchange for a story. What's his name? Said Bravd. Is, remember, changes to was. Bravd asked, because you see it's a question, what his name was. And then Two Flower. That is just a noun, so it doesn't change. And that is being said by Rincewind. Next one I would like you to do in your participation. Two Flower, said Bravd. What a funny name. Bravd said that, or Two Flower, was a funny name. Alexa, well done. And last one, you do not know the half of it. Remember, do not changes to did not, because present simple changes to past simple. So Rincewind said that Bravd didn't know the half of it, then asked about the chicken. Was that difficult or easy, boys and girls? I think a little bit difficult for you guys. Here we have Online Learning Activity 17.3, Reported and Direct Speech. The first part, you have to read a little bit of an interview and then use reported speech to answer the questions. So you're going to say, Dorian Lynskey said blah, 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 blah. Okay? Second one, you have to put the correct word into the sentences and then rewrite them using direct speech, which is the one with the quotation marks. And then you have 6 direct sentences, and like we did in today's presentation, you need to change them into reported speech. And you are saying that John is the person talking. Use this presentation again, find it in YouTube, use it again, and then it will be a little bit easier.